Welcome to the 66th episode of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, we'll talk about what we're thankful for in tabletop gaming. I'm Adam.
And I'm Matt.
And this is the GameFor Podcast. GameFor is a platform to help connect tabletop gamers and to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. Matt and I are part of a software development and design company called MilkCan. And because most of the folks at MilkCan love tabletop games, we developed the GameFor app and launched it in early 2018. We launched this companion podcast in June of 2019 to help tabletop gamers get more enjoyment out of their hobby. Due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, we hibernated the GameFor app in July of 2020 and plan to bring back a retooled version of the app for Android, iOS, and web when gaming in person is safer. Until then, we'll keep bringing you this podcast to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. So what's been going on?
Oh, not much.
Not much.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the nice comments that we've gotten. But yeah, we delayed the whole podcasting cycle.
Yes, we did.
Ended up.
We did. We were going to podcast. It would have gone up
last week.
No, 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, originally 2 weeks ago.
You're right, and then we were going to just delay it a week, and then
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, two Sundays ago.
Three Sundays ago.
Well, three Sundays ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was watching the Packer game with my mom, and suddenly she did not feel very well and wanted to be taken to the hospital, and she ended up having a heart attack.
Indeed.
So that was pretty scary, but and she was in this cath lab for about almost 5 hours.
Because they had to put
They put 3 stents in. Yeah.
3 stents, which is like... It's like we were talking about this earlier. It's kind of like a reverse Chinese finger trap where like it kind of expands. It's real skinny and then it sort of expands to open up the artery.
Yeah, basically, reinforces it and stuff. Yeah. So she was recovering pretty well from that. She had to stay a few nights in the hospital. We were like, okay, she's doing well. But let's delay recording.
Totally understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because the Wednesday right before we were about to record is when she got released from the hospital, so I had to go pick her up. So we just decided it wasn't going to work, and we'd delay it a week.
Yep.
Thinking, we're all set. We'll just record next week.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the following Sunday,
literally a week later.
Literally a week later. It was earlier in the day.
Sure.
And no Packer game. It was a bye week.
It was a bye week. That's a good point.
I started having some issues, and out of abundance of caution, because I couldn't figure out what was going on, went into the hospital and found out that I, too, was having a heart attack.
Right. So a week later than your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At age 40, which was super awesome. Luckily, they didn't find any long-term issues with me, no disease or anything else, just for some reason I have a plugged artery, and they were able to put 1 stent in and clear that up and put me on some meds, and I'm feeling lots better now. But
that's good to hear. But that obviously also delays things, and you've been taking it easy and all that kind of stuff. So I spent
a few days in the hospital. Bed rest and all that fun stuff. But
I got to say, I'm amazed because you showed me the entrance point where they go in to fix it, and it's like a dot on your wrist. I thought that they were going to have to not open you up, obviously, because we're not savages. It's the 20th century or 21st century, whatever the hell year it is.
Not open heart. Yeah,
but it's not even like a little tiny hole by your chest. It's like down by your wrist. It looks like a mosquito bite.
Yeah, they took a tube and basically fed it up my wrist all the way into my artery and cleaned it up and put a stent in. And so I have I've had pimples leave.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was expecting you were going to have at least a couple of stitches or soming someplace, but no, you're just like, you showed me this little thing on your wrist, and you're like, that's my heart surgery. Yep. I'm like, that,
which is kind of amazing. So it took them about an hour to do all that, which was pretty insane. So,
but obviously, you're not supposed to be running any marathons right now. And
no, I had to delay my Boston Marathon entry for the year.
Well, it's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Because Boston, I don't know, this time of year, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no.
I have no idea when the Boston Marathon is. I'm making that all up.
I think it's in the spring.
It probably is. But yeah, so you're working kind of from home and a little bit
just kind of easing back in this week.
This is honestly the first time you've been back in the studio.
Yeah.
Or the office.
Well, it's a podcast studio.
Yeah, it's a conference room covered in air conditioning. Yeah, so if folks been wondering why we missed an episode there, it's and then kind of missed the delay as well. This is the reason why, and you know, we're just glad that we're thankful that Matt and his mom both are doing well, and so Now I suppose maybe like I think a hobby that is like very like kind of centering and sort of like, you know, hopefully calming, almost meditative. Maybe you get to sit and paint and do a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot of happy little trees in my future.
Yeah. Or, you know, orcs
or happy little orcs.
Yeah, they might be happy. They seem pretty happy generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's we're very glad for you to be better.
Yeah.
And we're also glad for your mom to be better, and we're glad to that everything's turning out okay. And I'm glad that that our listeners / viewers are I'm glad that you folks, you know, like you said, the people talking in the comments on YouTube, it was nice. So that
I was very thankful. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any other kind of hobby stuff? And not that this was hobby related. But,
on the plus side, I did get my hobby space cleaned back up. There was still kind of remnants left over from the basement stuff over the summer. So
the kind of flooding stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I had a little bit of space cleared. Now I have a lot of space cleared and stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm planning on spending some more time finally.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about yourself? Healthy, hopefully?
I seem to be fine as far as that's concerned. My wife seems to be fine. Even Diesel, who, our oldest cat, who does technically have intestinal cancer, he seems to be fine, knock on wood. This is wood, I'm woodish.
Wood adjacent.
Yeah. But no, so that's been good. I've been doing hobby stuff, as I generally do. I finished finally those chaos models for Warcry, even the big crack-a-lack-a-ding-dong guy, and got that, the guy riding the big lizard guy. Got that all finished up. That needs to be varnished, but otherwise everything else is finished. And then I had those Osiark Bone Reapers that I bought used at that convention in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Bone dudes and stuff like that. And I decided I want to take a selection of them and use them for Warcry, so I primed them up. And then base coated them with some Army Painter, their new airbrush paints, which I'm really enjoying. And then I started painting them on Twitch. And then since then, I've finished those guys. And because it's been a while since last recording, but I finished those guys actually over this past weekend. I basically finished them on Twitch on Friday of last week, and then I just did the bases and the rims because I don't usually do those on stream. And then last night was Monday night, and I was streaming now. There's like an HQ guy who's he's called the Bone Shaper. Like he's the one who uses magic to create these bone constructs out of multiple skeletons.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not just like reanimated skeletons. They're like, hey, we took 7 skeletons and then squished all the parts together and made like a big, skeleton guy who's not really a skeleton, but he's made out of skeleton.
Nice.
That's kind of their job. And then there's another dude who's a huge skeleton guy, a huge bone construct called a Stalker or an Immortal or something like that. So I started painting those guys last night on stream, and we'll get through them, I think, actually, potentially very quickly because it was a lot of dry brushing. Bone guys. It's
that makes sense. Yeah.
So that's good. I also primed a bunch of Skaven, which will also be the next project for Warcry after I get done with these guys on Twitch. I will be painting those guys on Twitch after I get done with these Bone Reapers.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Skaven already, right?
Yeah, I originally did 13 Plague Monks. So they all looked kind of the same. They had slightly different heads, but they're all wearing like a green robe kind of thing, and they got roughly the same weapons. And so I did those like last year, 2020, I think. And then now I'm taking just a kind of a smattering of other guys that I can either build other rosters with, or I can, change up things or whatever, however I want to do it. But yeah, I'm going to have I've got a bunch of clan rats. I've got a Storm Fiend who's a big guy. I've got a couple of different HQ units and stuff. Nice. And those are all just primed black and white, so they're primed black and then sprayed white from above to get that zenithal highlight. So they will be the next ones after I get done with these bone dudes. And then just as a fun side project, I had these kind of cool sci-fi post-apocalyptic models from a company called Puppets War. Here in the notes, I have it wrong. There's these, they're kind of these sci-fi apocalypse, post-apocalyptic guys from this company called Puppets War, and I painted them up real quick. Just 5 of them. I think I have 5 more, but I just painted up 5 of them just to use in different types of skirmish games and stuff like that.
Okay.
Honestly, they're okay. They're not the greatest models, as it turns out. Like I like Puppets War for like, hey, I need like extra cool heads for different kit bashes and stuff like that. But these models themselves they're fine. I think they have a lot of character, but I think that they're hand sculpted, and it kind of shows because there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't know if this is supposed to be a flap on his cloak, or is this part of a belt, or what is that? Like it's a detail thing.
Yeah, I hate that. I've run into some of those before, and I'm like.
And it's something you don't see with a lot of modern companies because a lot of them are working in CG. It's computer graphics, and so they're those 3-dimensional objects are a lot more defined.
Yeah, there's times when I'm like, was this part of like, especially like metal ones, like was this part of the flashing? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Am I supposed to cut this off? Like,
was I supposed to cut this off? I don't. Yeah, and these guys have got like cloaks that are all like tattered and worn. So there's times I'm like, is that flash or extra cloak? And and they're resin too, so it's a different story beyond even metal, but it's not terrible. I don't know. Again, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on them. I just kind of cranked them out on a weekend, and they were fun. So I'll use them in this and that.
Cool.
But yeah, that's pretty much about it for me. I'm hoping to. I was thinking about this earlier today. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to maybe take a little bit, other than obviously Twitch and stuff like that, streaming. I'm going to maybe take a little bit of a hobby hiatus after the beginning of the year so that I can focus on actually cleaning the basement. Ooh. All of this talking about cleaning the basement, but I'm like on the weekend then, I'm like, oh, well, I got free time. I'm going to work on these models or those models. And it is stopping me from cleaning the basement. And so I do need to kind of work towards that. So, I'm thinking a little bit more about it, and we'll figure it out at some point. But that's kind of where that's at. GameFor Library Manager 1.1.0 is out, so that's cool.
Yep.
And we're working on the store finder for the new GameFor app. Our plan is to build the app. Originally, our plan was we were going to make the new version of the GameFor app and release it once it was finished, and we were like, this is going to take a good amount of time. But what we're kind of focusing on now is actually we want to make it a little bit more modular, so it could be released with, say, just the store finder to start, maybe.
Right, and an event finder and convention finder. Yeah, we'll be kind of doing that, party finder, all that stuff.
Because if we decided to just be like, okay, we have to wait till it's finished, like it might take a longer time. Well, potentially, I don't know. But it would still also just take longer for sure.
Right.
This way we can get stuff out into and there's parts that are going to be like the store finder. I've had some people recently being like, well, the store finder's not that important. I'm like, I had somebody recently in a comment who said something about that, and I was like, well, we've got plenty of emails and messages from other folks who are like, please bring back the store finder because I'm starting to travel again.
And when we look back at the analytics, it was by far the most used feature on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, definitely. And to be perfectly honest with you here too, it's probably the lower hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's going to be a quick one, and it probably would almost be out by now if we hadn't had the excitement over the last couple
Sure,
weeks.
That's potential. Yeah, that's for sure. That's sure. So that's what's going to be coming, and then maybe after Store Finder, maybe it's Convention Finder, or maybe it's looking for like the actual like event thing is going to have a little bit more kind of revamp a little bit, and so that's going to be maybe a different story. But we are working on that as well. We also published the Dice Cup, or not Dice Cup, Cuphead.
Cuphead, yeah.
Yeah, we did some work for a company called The Op, or is it the OP?
I don't know. I keep calling them The Op.
They used to be a company called USAopoly, and so they are the company that made a lot of like Monopoly, like licensed monopolies. So like I think they made Warhammer 40,000 Monopoly, and they've made
basically
the Walking Dead Monopoly,
yep,
and all that kind of stuff. And they've changed their name, and I don't know if it's the OP or the OP. But they produced a game that was licensed from the people who make the Cuphead video game, if you've ever seen
MDHR.
that. Yeah. And so
Studio MDHR.
Yes. And so it's got a very retro kind of 20s kind of look to it, and everything like that, like a 20s cartoon. Think like Steamboat Willie, kind of like very early, like
1920s animation and style, but it's a very hard platformer.
Yeah, for a video game, it's incredibly. Yeah, the video game is very difficult. I don't think I would ever be able to play it because I'm not as nimble on the video games as I used to be. But they've made now a fast dice rolling game, and they wanted a companion app, and so that's now available out there for people. So if you play that dice game, you now have this thing that has a built-in timer, so you don't have to like use your timer that's in your regular phone. Plus, it's got some background music that's fun, and then it does the scoring at the end for you.
Yep, and the buzzer and all that stuff.
Yeah. So that's also released, so that's cool. So now here's the thing. We were going to release this obviously closer to Thanksgiving. So the whole concept about being thankful made a lot more sense at the time. But we still thought that it was important stuff to say.
Yeah, we're still thankful.
You can give thanks anytime you want, really.
Exactly.
It's not just when there's pumpkin pie.
We don't have to worry about the turkeys. I mean, turkeys aren't thankful at Thanksgiving.
No, they're not. I bet not.
They're thankful now after Thanksgiving.
If they're still alive, yes.
Yes. Well, yeah, probably not.
That's true, yeah.
The one I ate probably is not.
That one,
thankful.
not so much. No. You didn't eat the whole turkey. That could be part of the problem.
That could have been part of the problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So we still decided we wanted to talk about things that we were thankful about within the realm of tabletop gaming because there's a lot of things I think that are important to be thankful about. Mm-hmm. And we're going to sort of hop back and forth here, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you want to start?
Sure, I can do the first one on my list, in no particular order.
No, these are not graded or anything like that.
Yeah. The first thing I'm thankful for is Kickstarters.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't mean all Kickstarters.
Sure.
I definitely don't mean the ones that easily could have just been released by the big name companies in the store and stuff. I don't mean those.
Not to name any names, but cool mini or not. Yeah.
But yes, no, I'm talking about like the ones that without Kickstarters, I'm not sure that they would ever have been released.
Right. I mean, that's what the crowdfunding platform was originally designed for.
Exactly. So like, restoration games, I think now they could probably get by without going back into Kickstarters.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, Fireball Island, I highly doubt that would have ever made it if they had to kind of go at it completely by itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game, some of the creative games were, like the miniatures and...
well, not even games. Like you got that big book full of those D&D map things.
Yeah, the D&D maps. The battle maps thing that was just a guy that, wanted to do this. And then now he's like on his like fourth or fifth book or whatever and stuff. And you can find them in hobby stores and stuff. It's awesome seeing like those like people, ones that are coming out with new STLs and stuff. So they're, giving me more options to game with and to choose for gamings, and they're feeding kind of the niche of stuff that, independent, but at the same time they can still be pretty highly produced.
Well, yeah, our good friend Lee, who Gaddis Gaming was a sponsor of the show here. And they had their most recent successful Kickstarter for
Empire Falls.
Empire Falls, yeah. I mean that's
the quality that he was. I mean, his first one, Shattered Crown,
which was alternative history World War I. This one is alternative history World War II.
Yeah, it was basically like stuff that like at Kinko's with the the little binding.
The original book.
The original book. And stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas this new one is, I mean, nicely formatted. Looks, it's got great pictures and
then and the layout and the cards and the miniatures and all that stuff. Yeah, it's real nice.
It's awesome that he was able to kind of take it to that level and then
exactly
keep going with that. So.
And that's, I mean, again, like I said, that is what Kickstarter is really designed for, is to get people who have an idea and for a product or a whatever, an event even, or something like that. And they want to, but they can't really, pull it off by themselves necessarily.
They can show
monetarily.
that there is a public need or interest in what they're doing and get it done. And so I think that this forever changed tabletop gaming, and I'm really thankful for it, especially when it succeeds the right way.
Board gaming, I don't know where I read this recently, but board gaming is like the largest segment of tabletop gaming. Let me even widen it a bit. Tabletop gaming is the largest segment in Kickstarter as far as. I mean, sure, there's Kickstarters for games, there's Kickstarters for music, there's Kickstarters for, comics,
tech gadgets.
But yeah, tabletop gaming is the largest segment.
I'm not shocked at all.
And that's in general only, I mean, not completely, but for I think there's certain countries that don't, Canadians have a tendency to go to Indiegogo, and I don't know, I don't think that it's Canadians are outlawed from using Kickstarter.
Not
I just
that I'm
know
aware
that
of. Yeah.
whenever I do see a Canadian company doing something, it's usually not through Kickstarter. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Kickstarter made fun of maple syrup at one point or something like that.
Yeah. Did you see they're tapping into the reserves?
Who is Kickstarter?
No, Canada.
Canada's tapping into the reserves.
The maple syrup reserves.
There are maple syrup reserves?
There are actual maple syrup reserves in Canada, and they're having to tap into them because of the low production in the last couple of years.
I think these trees better get their stuff together.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, is it just a big giant vat someplace? I hope no one falls in there. That would be terrible. It's just I don't even
slow sticky death.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to keep the bugs out of there alone. That would be terrible. Hopefully they put it in separate jars, and it's giant separate jars. At least in my mind, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
It's below all the IHOPs.
Right? Yeah.
Is there IHOPs in Canada?
I don't. Well, it's international.
Yeah, maybe
so. There should be an IHOP.
Should be.
Yeah.
Maybe it's under the Tim Hortons.
Oh, it could be that. Under the headquarters. Well, let me see here. I am thankful for, and this may seem a little, I don't want to say self-serving, but maybe a little bit, but I am thankful for indie games and STL models.
Okay.
And when I talk about indie games, I'm talking about generally indie miniature games and things like that, of course, because that's kind of my jam. But over this last year, specifically, I've purchased a bunch of different indie games from different publishers. Games like stuff from Planet 28, some of the new stuff that the company that makes Planet 28, which is called Mammoth Miniatures, new stuff that they've been putting out, and then Space Weirdos I've really enjoyed. Zona Alpha I've had for a while, so that's not necessarily new this year, but there was also an expansion for it called Contraband, which I've also dug. And I just really like that a lot of this stuff can be like this, and you can have the ability to not just be like, well, I got to use these companies that I see, on the shelf at the big stores or whatever. I like that that you have as a person who's interested in miniatures specifically, and there's tons of this also in board games. There's tons of it in RPGs, tons and tons of it in RPGs. I don't know. There's a lot of independent or indie game collectible card games, so there's that's a tough kind of like technical issue, but yeah. So I've been really glad about that. And then STL models, the thing that's really made me the most excited about that is just the fact that again, you're going to find models for stuff that people you just wouldn't expect, because it's not a situation of like, well, we only can produce models that we know are going to sell, so we get our money back.
Right.
You've got if you haven't heard, a lot of sculptors, 3D, digital sculptors, have basically started either their own Patreon, with the idea that you support them on Patreon, and then you get access every month to X amount of new files that they created every month, and then you have all kinds of stuff to fire through your printer. Or there's an alternative now to a Patreon for sculptors called Tribes. And it's through the folks over at My Mini Factory. Yep. So they're able to kind of tailor the service a little bit more to the actual sculptor folks and all that kind of jazz. It also becomes more of a one-stop shop, because then that way, like, let's say you don't support them on Tribes, but you're still interested in buying some of their models a la carte, then they're right there in my
that's how you can find them,
Oh yeah, exactly. Because it's really hard to just go into Patreon and type in "show me cool models" or "I want to see demon models," let's say, which is a search that I did on My Mini Factory, and then on that you find tons of stuff there. So that kind of thing is really. I think it's great for the industry long term.
Well, there's a lot of cool benefits you get from STLs that you don't get from buying pre-made models. Like you can, say
scale them different sizes.
Scale them to the different sizes. They're a lot. You can. They're not worried so much about how well they hold up in shipping.
Right.
So you get some.
You generally don't ever get any mold lines.
Right.
There's that too. So there's that. Sometimes you get those little pimples that you get from the supports, but those are, I think, frankly, a little easier to deal with.
Yeah, those are pretty easy to get rid of.
In situations. But a lot of them are also designed to be. I've seen people who are kit bashing before they even start printing. Right. I've been seeing people taking like bits from this file and bits from this file and bits from this file and squishing them all together. I mean, it takes a little bit more skill than it might to actually physically do it with glue and like X-Acto blades and whatnot. But it's amazing the things that you can see change and tweak.
Things you don't have to. A lot of them you don't have to assemble either.
Yeah, exactly.
As printer sizes get bigger, a lot of them are just coming like, nope, just print this whole thing.
Yeah, just print this model and it's done. Like, yeah, there's usually not a lot of building. I know that, like, I don't think that those demons that you printed for me that I used in the game in Rain and Hell is for photography. I think all of them were solid.
They were all solid. No, they're hands with their weapons.
Oh yeah, that's right. The hands were separate, but that was mainly just to make it more modular. It wasn't like a a situation of it being a technical issue. It was just like, well, we want to be able to give you the option to use different.
Pretty much, yeah.
And technically, you could have done that probably in well, I don't know if you could do it in the slicing software.
You probably could, but it'd be hard to do. It'd be easier to do in a 3D.
Some other 3D system and then go from there. But yeah. That kind of stuff specifically for miniatures, but even getting into 3D printing stuff a little bit for making interesting like organizational trays for your board games and things like that. You're seeing people producing that kind of stuff too, also through those things. So the overall grassroots kind of indie kind of stuff that's coming out in tabletop gaming is really the thing that I'm really enjoying. I keep seeing people talking about like. I don't know. I see people talk about like big companies and how they're making this, and you're seeing that in video games too. Big companies, the big AAA games, and how full of bugs they are and all this kind of stuff. And I just am constantly in the back of my head, just like, well, there's a lot of indie stuff out there.
There's an alternative. Yeah,
there is an alternative. So that's something I'm thankful for.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
What about you?
All right. So my second one, what got me thinking about this was someone was talking this morning on, I think it was Reddit, and they were talking about how I watched the first 30 seconds of The Last Samurai, and now Netflix is like, hey, so you like samurai movies? Here's all these samurai movies.
Sure,
and here's Tom Cruise's samurai movies, and because you love samurai movies, here's all the samurai movies with Tom Cruise in it. And
we're also selling your data to Facebook and sending everything you're going to see on Facebook.
And now you're suddenly a samurai sword enthusiast and everything else. Mm-hmm. And it's exhausting. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so not me. Or like, you buy something at this time of year as a present for Amazon, and suddenly they're like, oh, so you like
My Little
pot holders.
You like My Little Pony, huh? Yeah. then yeah, exactly. You're like, well, my daughter does, but yeah.
And I was thinking, I don't have to worry about that when I go to my friendly local game store. Like, those employees are like, hey, we just got this cool thing in, you might like, or did you hear that this is coming out? Or, we're taking pre-orders for that. Like, it's the stuff that we used to get for the video rental stores and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But now, we still get that. We still have the luxury of getting that at our friendly local game stores.
Like if you're interested in a specific type of movie, let's say it's a genre, like it's horror. I mean, to be perfectly honest, most old video game or video stores used to just have a section that this is the horror section, and this is the action section, and this is the romance section. So that was helpful. But at game stores, sometimes you have that. The board games go over here in this game. But it's more by brand in a lot of situations. But if you come into the store and you're like, I really like miniatures, let's say, but I don't want to play Games Workshop stuff, then they'd be like, well, do you like Star Wars?
Are you looking for like sci-fi or fantasy?
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, I'm kind of looking for, not really sci-fi. I'm looking for more fantasy. And they're like, okay, well, here's Blades, songs of...
Song of Blades and Heroes.
Thank you.
Or do you mean the Game of Thrones?
One.
Okay, yeah. Game of Thrones is Song of Ice and Fire, which is a totally different thing.
Oh.
Yeah. But, no, I mean...
Anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's interesting that, because you get the more personal service, but it's not a constant, like... Oh, you bought a Star Wars guy that one time. We're just going to only tell you about Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If something new comes in, there's like, hey, there's a new, I don't know, Yoda with machine gun or whatever they're going to do next. I have no idea.
Right.
I haven't really paid close attention to Legion recently, but let's say there's a new Yoda with machine gun, and then now I want to see him fire like a big M60 and he'd be flying around the
or a minigun.
Yeah. like Jesse Ventura in
Predator.
There you go. Just Yoda saying, I ain't got time to bleed. I don't even know how you would do it. Bleed, I ain't got time to. I don't know. My point is that, they will say, hey, I know you've been buying, stuff from Star Wars and there's something new, but then if you're like, I'm interested in this, you get that kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
And a good employee or manager or owner or, whatever, person that works at the FLGS. Yeah, no, I definitely like.
Yeah, you can ask their opinion. You can be like, "Hey, I have this brush, and but it doesn't seem to be working well, or it seems to like." And they're like, they can tell you like, "Oh yeah, we've had that issue. Like, we recommend these brushes, or you might not be cleaning it right or holding it right. And
Right. I mean, and they may not even paint, but if
Right.
they'll know what other people have told them. They're
Yep.
like, that brush I bought from you, it was a real piece of garbage. Or, that brush I bought you, that was the best thing ever. And then they're going to, salt that
lock
away
it
in their
there
brains.
and
Yeah.
talk and yep.
Yeah. And they, like I said, they may be mostly a Pokemon person or whatever, but they're still going to remember things because you're there working, and that's the way it works. And yeah, I agree. That algorithm, man, that can be a harsh mistress. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but yeah, there's times where you're just like, my favorite is when it tells you about stuff you already bought. Like, I saw the ad, I bought it, and now you're still telling me, hey, you should get that. Hey. And I'm like, I did.
Right.
Yeah, stop it.
I feel like buying a car, and they're like, hey, so you bought a car.
Would you like a car?
Would you like another car?
You might want to think about buying a car. Yeah, no, I also am thankful for FLGS employees and just the friendly local game store in general. Yeah. The only issue that I have sometimes with game store stuff, and it's not a big thing, it's just sometimes it's like, I wish you had everything in stock, which of course is the case with everybody, but it's also impossible.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But that's the issue. Yeah, cool. Well, I have another thing that I'm also thankful for, and it is self-publishing, which is also kind of tied into my last thing a little bit, talking about indie stuff.
There's a theme.
There's a theme. There is.
A theme within the theme.
Yeah. Right now, it is an amazing time if you want to start publishing your own game. I've had people asking me a lot lately, like in live shows, like whether it's on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever. I think this past Sunday, on the Every Other Sunday show, someone was asking a bunch of questions about like publishing and stuff like that. And through the mixture of Kickstarter, which you mentioned, and also self-publishing stuff like, our book was published through an overall company called One Bookshelf, and they have a lot of sub-websites like Drive-Thru RPG and RPG Now and Wargame Vault and Drive-Thru Cards and all kinds of stuff like that. And the ability for you to be able to have a marketplace and reach millions of people all over the world with your product, like, I can tell you as a person who originally started a small, tiny little hobby press game company in 92 or 3, it was a lot harder back then because you had to go to a place and get things printed, and then you had to sit on them, and then, not literally, but still, and then it was very difficult to get people to know about it because, there was no internet and there were no online marketplaces and all this kind of stuff. And then so you're sitting on inventory and you're worried about shipping and doing all this kind of stuff. And so if you're interested, and I've been telling people a lot this lately, if you're interested in making a game, understand you're not going to get rich, certainly, and understand that that's. But I would tell you, well, okay. The first thing I would tell you if you're interested in making a game is to start making content before you even start making that game. Make an Instagram, make a blog, make a YouTube, make a TikTok. I guess I don't even know, but make something because you need to build an audience. And then eventually, once you actually produce your game in whatever format, preferably something real low impact, like a PDF, through a place like that, or maybe even something like print-on-demand game, like again, like the books that you can get through companies like One Bookshelf, but then also stuff like GameCrafter.
GameCrafter, yeah.
I mean, GameCrafter. If you're looking to do a board game like the GameCrafter, you can look them up online. They're amazing for being able to be like, oh, here's the cards we can do and the boards we can do and the boxes and the instruction manuals and all the little tokens and the meeples and all kinds of junk like that. And you can do a lot with that kind of stuff. You don't need to be like, I designed this game and now I have to go talk to Hasbro. You can do it yourself. And the self-publishing thing, and especially if you're getting into like RPGs too, because like RPGs are basically just a book. You know what I mean? Like that's not hard to do either. But if you do want to go beyond something like that, you can probably hopefully find one of those 3D sculptors and pay them some money to make some cool STLs, and you can come up with your book and go down that road and all that stuff. But I really enjoy that as a person who used to do it the old way a little bit, and now with the new way, it's just, I find, easier, lower barrier to entry. And if you really need to, you can also start off with a Kickstarter if you need to raise funds for to get things rolling. So.
Yeah, there's really no excuse if you have the passion and the time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To not have a game done. Like, if you want to have a game and you have the time and the passion to do it, there's really nothing stopping you anymore.
I know that there are people who come up with the concept, like this used to happen even back when we were doing it, more the old school way. My friend Peter and I, who I started the company with, we would sit at like small conventions and things like that, and people would come up and ask about our game, and then it was almost always like, oh yeah, no, that's really interesting. So, the game that I'm working on, like that was always the follow-up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what are you doing there? Oh, you make games with zombies? Oh, that's great. The game I'm working on, and then they'd talk for 20 minutes, which is fine. But I can't tell you how many people would come up to us and be like, okay, so the game that we're working on, it's really cool. It's got a 5-foot by 5-foot board, and there's 470 different cards, and you're just like, whoa, dial that back. That's just not, you gotta, we did a game an episode just recently about print and play games, and a lot of those games have 18 cards in them.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean? And I think it's really interesting if you can sit down and be like, look, this is our limitation. What can we do within here? And because it's an easier actual hill to climb in that situation.
Yeah, limitations expands artistry,
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true.
creativity.
Absolutely true.
So,
Excuse me. Well, what else you got?
all right. So the last one is solo tabletop hobby aspects. So
Okay.
this is like 3D printing, putting models together, painting, writing campaigns, basically stuff that you can do that's tabletop game related, but you don't have to have everyone together to do it. Like
Yeah.
if I buy, and that was one of the things I kind of and started enjoying as I kind of branched out from board games. Like board games, pretty much, except for maybe like punching out the cardboard at the very
Sure.
beginning. For the most part, once you buy the board game, now you just have to wait for people to play it with you.
There are some single-player board games.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
right. But but like when you look at miniature games and even some RPGs, there's very little you can do. There's very little that you don't have to at least do some kind of prep work and
Right.
do
Oh,
stuff
absolutely.
ahead of time.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely.
building models and painting and stuff like that. And the past couple of years, it's been nice to kind of have that.
Have the ability to do stuff by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and especially like in a cold climate, it's nice having something to do in the wintertime when it kind of sucks to go outdoors and
Yeah, very true.
air hurts your face.
Yeah, yeah.
Or it's 10 o'clock at night and you're looking for something to do and you're not ready for bed, but so.
Yeah, no, I think that some people look at sometimes the solitary kind of aspect of some genres of tabletop games as a negative. I do look at them as like, yeah, it's when I want to spend time and like listen to an audiobook or a podcast, I've got something to do while I'm doing that, and I feel like I'm doing two things at once, which technically am. And I totally agree with that. I think that, but the upside is that if you want to, you can also when the opportunity arises, you can then also play with people. If you want to, which is
like
great.
I can put together Revel models of cars and planes
Sure,
and
right.
stuff. But then once they're together, then I guess I can
you look at
hang them
them.
from the ceiling or put them on
exactly.
shelves.
Yeah.
But then it's done. Whereas, this I get to play with and
Yeah, you get to do
Interact.
other stuff, but it's kind of on your terms. I mean, obviously, we were seeing also a lot of people playing, like on Discord and Roll20 and stuff like that and whatever. Over the course of the pandemic, which we're still in, thankfully. Not really. I'm not thankful for that. No, I was being facetious. But yeah, no, I totally understand that. A little bit of that kind of ties into my last one as well, right? Which is about digital enhancements in tabletop gaming.
Okay.
So it ties into it in the concept of Roll20 and being able to play online and Tabletop Simulator and stuff like that. I look forward to, even within miniatures, I look forward to there being more digital enhancements to that genre and many of the other ones. Games Workshop's one of the biggest, obviously, or the biggest in the tabletop wargaming industry, but they're still kind of resistant, in my opinion, to digital stuff. Like they've gotten into audiobooks and they're doing things through Audible. That's great, and they've gotten into even ebooks and things like that, and that's great. Kindle, whatever, that's fine. But it's still a pain in the butt to build an army, to build the list. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they've got some things here and there. There's like a web page you can use, an army builder-y kind of thing that they sort of made for Age of Sigmar. They kind of have one for Kill Team, but now with the new version of Kill Team, to be honest, I haven't even looked at it. I don't think it's the same. But like other companies, like they're not necessarily doing as great these days, but Privateer Press has got a great app. Like when the last time I saw people playing Privateer Press, everybody was walking around with like either a mini tablet or they had all their cards on their phone.
Okay.
Because the app is good enough that it's very simple to just swipe through cards and go, oh, that guy's got a move of 6, or whatever, that kind of stuff. We were just finding out recently about Battlescribe. Like there's been talk going around about Battlescribe, which is one of probably the most popular army builder on, for miniatures games. And evidently the person who wrote it like hasn't been really heard of or heard from in like a year and a half.
Yeah, like I don't know if something happened or if he just
gave up on it, or what, you maybe had a kid, whatever. There's all kinds of different things, but just like complete like radio silence. And the data files that go into it are completely removed from the person who wrote it, luckily, so
they're kind of open source,
right?
Yeah.
But like, there's been no updates to it and this and that and everything. So it's been kind of weird that way. But that, and also, frankly, Battlescribe is weirdly designed from a UX UI perspective as a user interface guy.
It's clunky and
it is odd. And the PC versions also.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other companies out there that are doing things. Like, I don't generally like the concept of like you can't play the game without the app kind of a situation. Like I was mentioning earlier, we did that thing with the Cuphead fast rolling dice game. That's a companion app. You could do all the stuff that app does just by having a little timer on your phone and writing down some math. But you also have this neat themed thing with some music and some audio files from the video game and all that kind of stuff. And it's a neat little extra thing. And I kind of like bringing that stuff in. I'm not necessarily 100% all about like every game needs to be digital, but it is a nice thing to make.
It'd be nice to do some of that stuff, like especially like your army builders. Like, I mean, how nice would it be if like Games Workshop released a thing like, okay, here's a Kill Team builder or Warcry, and you can build your list. You'll get all your cards. And then here's your shopping list. Here's what sets you need so you can build it.
That's what the original Age of Sigmar app was. And it was not bad. And then lately it's gotten, but yeah, that I can guarantee you that I have, and this is, maybe too much information, but I have sat on the toilet looking at that app and purchased models because I was able to look up their stats in the app without having to buy a codex or a battle tome. You know what I mean? It was just be like, oh, that guy could work with this guy. Oh, that's really cool. That's a neat thing. And then there's just a button right there, like boop, and then boom.
Right.
Or I save it and then I go to the shop and I buy it or whatever. But yeah, I know that I've been swayed.
Or
by
vice
that.
versa. Like I'm like, oh, I've got a bunch of extra orcs stuff from when I built my kill team. Now, if I'm looking into building a combat patrol,
right? Exactly. Well, what can I do with that?
Yeah, what can I do with these pieces and stuff? You know?
But I mean, honestly, like it seems like the big companies do have a hard time with that sometimes. Like look at Wizards of the Coast. They've relied very heavily on working with D&D Beyond,
right?
But it's not. Like they were like, oh, we're going to make this and we're going to make that. I remember that stuff from 4th edition. They were like going to do all these big things, and I would be at Gen Con seeing all these like things, and it just wasn't kind of happening. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, but I like it when I see it and it works well, and I'm thankful for it when it works well. I'm just kind of hoping we get a little bit more.
Yeah, I hopefully it'll get better.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else that you're thankful for that you can think of within the realm of tabletop gaming?
Tabletop. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have any big plans for like maybe games to play over the holidays?
Nothing I've figured out yet. I was downstairs last night and realized there's a bunch of games that I don't know if I've even played once yet. Need to be broken out. So, yeah, the wheels are starting to turn there.
Like family style games or like other stuff?
Less family, but some of that stuff could be broken into family stuff. So
no, definitely. I have been considering. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know. I eventually do want to get my wife involved a little bit with some skirmish games. I think that she would enjoy them because she likes board games. So as long as she probably doesn't have to paint or do any of that stuff.
Right.
I think
she can just work with the strategy.
Yeah.
That's how you get them hooked.
That's exactly
what you did to me, and I'm like, oh, these are fun. And then you're like, now you can paint stuff. I'm like. And I start painting stuff, and then I like painting.
Yeah. Then you got an airbrush and all the whole jam. I know.
3D printers.
Oh yeah. Not one, multiple printers. Indeed. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player or just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@imgamefor.com. You can also keep up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And check out our website at www.imgamefor.com. That is www.imgamefor.com. Thanks.